Hello, and thanks for being here with us at the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic at Centerstone. And we appreciate those who are joining us virtually. We are here to support the second year of Together Against Hate. This initiative started with the JCA and the YMCA. I'm Eleanor Blair, and I'm excited to be part of that team. Tonight's topic is the military community, unique barriers and challenges, where we'll explore the unique barriers and challenges in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia. We'll provide deeper insight into solutions and open up the conversation. Our goal is to dispel myths, discuss important truths, and identify resources for our military community. Now I'd like to introduce tonight's moderator, Lavender Morrison. Lavender is currently with Humana Military. She has strong ties in the local military community for many years and served as the chair of the Military Health Advisory Committee. She's a strong advocate for military wellness and has been a good friend to us at the Y. Next up is Lavender.
Thank you, Eleanor. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm excited to get started and kind of dive into the conversation, an opportunity for all of us to learn together. Before we do that, just keep in mind as we're going through the questions, if anyone on Zoom or anyone in the group here tonight, if you have any questions, just make note of that and we'll pause at the end for those questions. So let's jump right in and introduce our wonderful panelists. Let's start with you, Ian. Ian is the program manager for Firewatch. He is retired Coast Guard and also the co-chair of the Military Advisory Committee. Hi, Ian.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And the next we have Reggie Richardson. He is the former lead of the Trident Ministry in Mayport, and he's actually now transitioned over to NAS Jax, and he is active duty. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And then we have Deanna sorry, I always say your last name, Lavino. There you go. Yep. It's wonderful to have you here. She is the Assistant Director of Stephen A. Cohen Clinic where we are today. So we appreciate your support. She's also a huge supporter of all of the wonderful work that we've been doing here. So we appreciate having you. And then we have, last but not least, we have Eric Hernandez, who is retired Air Force. He is also the director of First Coast YMCA Military Outreach and the co-chair of the Military Health Advisory Board. So yeah, so much. I'm going to go on ahead and just dive right into questions. First question is for Eric and Reggie. What are some of the immediate needs for the military family? Food insecurity, financial assistance, childcare, employment. What are some of the things that you see sort of bubbling to the top in terms of immediate needs? I'm going to start with you, Reggie.
Sure. I think number one, I would say food insecurity. I know just since I started at NAS Jax in October, we've had 5 sailors come to the chapel looking for food, 2 of which have little babies, so needing baby formula and those things. You would think that wouldn't be the case with active duty members, but it's just sadly it is. I think one thing that's causing that is it's 2-year wait for housing at Mayport. It's a 1.5-year wait for housing at NAS Jax. So they're having to stay out in town where the prices are higher. So that's one of the things. The commute is usually long. So you're dealing with high gas prices. You're dealing with, like I say, we get paid 1st and 15th. By that second week, people are out of groceries. So what we were trying to do with the Trident Ministry team at Mayport was do a food pharmacy every 2 weeks. So we targeted those 2 off weeks for groceries. So since I started NAS Jax, we're starting a food distribution on Tuesday, the 10th, at the Fleet Reserve Association from 1 to 3 to try to monitor and see what is our need for food at NAS Jax area to see if we need to start maybe doing that once a month or twice a month. So that'll be a good barometer. But I would say food insecurities. The other thing is marriage issues, because a lot of our sailors are younger and they're getting married younger. They think a lot of the people I counsel, because they get a paycheck for the first time, they think the next step is get married. Like I'll give you one vague situation that doesn't breach any confidentiality, but I asked them, well, how long have you known this person? And well, how long have you been married? 3 weeks. And I said, how long have you known them? 3 weeks. So that's what we're kind of dealing with is those marital issues. So it all goes back to finances, I think is the biggest, struggle that a lot of our sailors are facing right now. And so however we can partner community wise, my approach in the CO Bender at Mayport, his approach, and fortunately, the new CO at NAS Jax, Captain DeWint, they both understand that building community partners is the best way to attack these giants because military alone cannot defeat these. So we need community partners and outreach.
Perfect segue for you to
That's
answer. Eric.
basically what the chaplain said. The need is there. The biggest need is food insecurities. We see that with our food distributions at Kings Bay. We've been doing that for about a year now. And we're serving 100 to 125 families every distribution that we do. Our biggest one was 200 just past November for Thanksgiving. We did one partnered with Winn-Dixie and did one for 300 families, and the remaining food went back to the food distribution at Kings Bay. It's a big need, but I think Chaplain said it best. I think financial management and the economy being as bad as it is now, it's hard for the E5 let alone by themselves, let alone having a family of 2 to 3 in the household. So it's a struggle in that area. Partnership wise, from my standpoint as an outreach director, I try to attend every base meeting from the NAS Jax to Mayport, Kings Bay. I'm partnered with multiple veterans councils, trying to get a feel for what the needs are in the area. And those are probably the top 2 is financial needs and food insecurities.
I think the panel is a great example of community, right? Bringing people together and not just staying inside the limits of the base. I think that reaching out to the community and finding different opportunities to support, YMCA does a phenomenal job of that. Deanna, the next question is for you. What are some of the most common mental health challenges that you're seeing within the active duty population and the veteran population?
So the most common one we continue to see is the access to care. We're often told that there are so much challenge in being able to just access care. So it's a long wait here, a long wait there. And so we try to break those barriers down as best we can. So if someone calls here today, I can get them in for an intake today or tomorrow. I can get them in front of a clinician next week. And so that is one way we break down that barrier. The other thing is we also have a provider on staff, which is something that oftentimes they also struggle in being able to have a prescriber who can prescribe the medications that they need, but on a faster basis. And so they also struggle with, sometimes the financial issues that, for the same reasons that you're seeing the food insecurity, they're having the financial issues that I can't afford to go see a therapist. And so we break down that barrier by, Stephen A. Cohen has put a fund together that he allows us to tap into when someone comes in and they're going to have a financial burden. If they have to pay for a copay or they have to pay for services, we provide that for free because Mr. Cohen has said, hey, no one here is going to have to worry about access to care and finances being a barrier to access to care. So he's made sure of that through that fund. Another way is if someone is unable to get to the clinic and we, it literally want in-person services. Not everybody's open to telehealth. So they want in-person services, but the car is broken down or they, for whatever reason, they can't get here. We'll send an Uber to go pick them up and bring them here. And so, whatever it is that we can do to bring them in for services faster, we do that.
Love that. I love the fact that you have like an Uber situation. I learned that. It's such a great way to be able to engage and get people to come in. Because transportation is, gas, being able to afford gas to get to and from. And if you have limitations in terms of you have to get to your employment every day, right? You might not have the financial extra to be able to kind of segue and make it to the clinic. So
Well,
that's
so many
wonderful.
of our veterans also are also homeless, and so
Right.
they don't have access to be able to get transportation they can get here, and they want to come in person. So make sure like that.
The next question is for everyone. How can the military community improve their awareness and reduce the stigma around seeking mental health support among service members and their families? So I'm going to start with you, Ian, because we haven't had an opportunity to hear you.
One of my favorite stories is from one of my colleagues. He was in the Marine Corps and said, we were taking this big ruck, this big march, and we're going along and a truck pulled up beside of them and said, hey, you guys want to ride? And they're looking at their sergeant who is over the march and they're thinking, this guy's never going to let us get on the truck. And the sergeant said, hop on. They're like, well, hang on a second. So they all get on there and the sergeant says, well, you know what? I bet you're wondering why we accepted the ride. A good Marine finishes the march. A smart Marine takes the ride when it's offered. And that's one big thing that I see in the military and veteran community. People are not going to ask for the help. And that stigma is, being a veteran myself, we have other veterans active duty here. No one wants to be seen as the weak link. And it's trying to reinforce that you're not the weak link by taking care of yourself, by reaching out for that help. And I think that is one of the greatest challenges right now, especially for many of us who don't want to be seen. I was talking with the chaplain earlier, the fact he's doing a food drive off base. So many people aren't going to want to go on base where people say, "Ooh, look at them, they need help." But by going off base, they may not be seen by other people, and they're scared about getting in trouble. So I think there's a lot of things, a lot of stigmas, a lot of perceptions that need to be cleared up to say, you know what, if you're not taken care of, you can't be efficient in your job. And we need you to be efficient in whatever role you're fitting.
Yeah, I think you touched a great point, is there's a lot of mixed signaling going on where you're told to get help, but then as soon as you get the help, for a lot of people, it goes on their permanent record and that might stunt their progress or their career. So I think that's where, I feel like chaplains can be the wild card in that, in the sense that we have complete confidentiality. So we can maybe be a bridge to that to get people to mental health. I know myself, referring people out is a big thing. And when they come to us, it doesn't go on the permanent record. And we're able to try to advocate for them. We can't force them to get the help, but we can reason and use logic. And yes, we're chaplains and we have theology, but we don't always lead with that theology. We're never void of it, but we don't always lead with that. Sometimes we're just talking with people on a human level. How can we help that particular individual with what's going on in their life? So I think using the chaplains more is one way that we could get around some of that stigma, because, like I say, because of that confidentiality piece. But it's a problem. I mean, it's difficult because no one, like you say, wants to be seen as needing being the squeaky wheel, even though they need the oil. So how do you get around that? I think building more partners outside the gate is another way. Like you say, they're not being seen getting the help, but there can still be an advocate for that. And just communicating. I think the biggest piece is communication and using our empathic ears, even on a CO level or XO level, like just in the unit alone, being able to be more empathic. And I think it even starts at the chief level, being able to listen to the problems and not just gloss over them and, take people for at their word. But that's just my opinion.
Definitely leadership, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, leadership, awareness, and making it a safe space. What about you, Ian?
I think it's more of a fear factor.
Yeah.
Going back to my active duty career. So I had top secret clearance, and there are certain protocols I had to be out. A program called PRP. There's only certain medications you can take. If you take these medications, you got to come off the program. You can't do your job. And the fear of taking these medications is like, I'm going to jeopardize my career. What's my future going to be like? And in the end, you really got to weigh what's it going to be like. My 20-year career was a great 20-year career. How much damage was done to the family because I wasn't on the proper medications, because I was dealing with PTSD or anxiety or something along those lines. So from a leadership standpoint, they got to understand he needs help or she needs help, and let's provide them the resources to do so. It wasn't until like my 18-year mark in my military career where I started receiving help that I needed to get myself where I needed to be. I was successful, but outside the military, life was taking a hit. It affected my marriage and my children and everything else. So something had to change. And it's a stigma that needs to be changed. Like, we got to focus on the family, because if my family isn't taken care of, my mind isn't where I need to be as far as the mission goes, especially from downrange. So that fear factor needs to be changed, and we need to get over that a little bit.
I know you can kind of piggyback off of this a little bit, especially talking about the spouse and being able to serve them and what that looks like. And if you want to speak to that.
Well, sure, but I think Even though we serve the entire family, I have a lot of spouses who come in here and tell me that I need to get my husband in, and so, but he's too afraid. He's too afraid of what's gonna happen. He has top secret clearance. He's gonna lose his clearance. He's afraid of losing his clearance. And as much as we work really well with all of base command, when we're on base, the service members still have, that stigma is still there. So as much as you talk about a top-down approach, and we are working with command, I don't feel like it's the service members are actually getting that message, right? The DoD has done a great job in kind of putting the policies in place to make sure that service members have access to care. However, the stigma is alive and well, and it's one of those things that it prevents the entire family from seeking services. Couples won't come in for care as much as they want to because of that fear. It's still there.
An unfortunate barrier for sure. I know when I was a military spouse, same thing. The communication is, you don't know how it is. Like, being on the outside, you're not on the outside, but you're a part of it, but you're still not, it's not my job that I go to 9 to 5 or, whatever. So it's not something that I'm engaging regularly. And so there is still that stigma, and it's hard to break down, but I think that peer-to-peer support system too, having leadership be on board and being able to support, but also have that peer-to-peer support where it's okay. Listen, I'm going through it. I'm experiencing XYZ. This has helped me. This is what is, transitioned or improved, or even, from the veteran status, having those conversations, I think that's impactful. Hey, I wish I would have, at year 10 or whatever it is, instead of a year 18, this is, the things that impacted my family and where, this took me. Just sharing that experience can always be really helpful.
Let me chime in one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
As far as weighing the cost of it, so looking at your family as a whole. My 20-year career, when I stepped out of the uniform, I was no longer Sergeant Hernandez. That my title means nothing to the civilian sector. What's important is the family in the end. So my career is going to come to the end at one point in time, but the family's going to be there for long term. And the last thing you want to do is lose that because you didn't get the help you needed early on. So for those listening, don't be scared to get the help you need.
This is another question for everyone. In your opinion, what are some of the most effective strategies for promoting resilience, overall mental health and well-being among military and veteran population, so active duty and veteran? What are some of the best ways to sort of promote that? And I'll start
I mean, I can mention what we did at Mayport. One of the things we did was change the messaging of that to self-care. One of the things that we don't teach enough of is coping, because everyone's coping some way, but a lot of times they're using poor coping skills like drugs, alcohol, could be premarital or sexual affairs or what have you, whatever destructive behavior you want to label. And the thing we tried to do there was we came up with a program with the XO called REST, which was Resiliency Essential Support Training, where we took the programs that we have, like Fleet and Family and Credo and all these things that are good programs, but repurposed them in the sense of how we messaged it. So the main thing we messaged with that is we took 10 tenets from, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all the way down to nutritionally. Even we used the galley to say, hey, when one of these things is off, understand how to know that and what resource you can use to cope. So for instance, if it was mental health, this is your resource. So just repackaging that to teach better coping skills, I think is the biggest thing, because our 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they're just not coping the way we did 10 years ago. It's just they're facing different enemies than what we had.
Well, before the Fire Watch, I worked for a marriage and relationship nonprofit, and they did a lot of work with the Air Force, especially out in the Panhandle, and saw divorce rates and marital problems plummet because the commands were engaging. They were investing in their airmen and saying, we found a program that is great, that's wonderful. We want to send you to this. It's a weekend thing. We're investing. You get the time off work. You don't have to pay for anything, and they invested in their folks. And I think to your point, when the commands are involved and showing that activeness, that really speaks volumes to the people underneath them, where they may not feel like just a number. As far as the fire watch goes, because that's who I'm currently with, one big thing that we have seen on our side is we engage with communities, engage with community members. And right now, as of today, we have 8,084 volunteers who have gone through our free training. We've seen suicides here in Northeast Florida plummet since the inception. And of those 8,000 plus volunteers, 70% have never put on a uniform. They have no military affiliation. So when you get the community involved, and just like the Trident team or Feeding Northeast Florida, that community goes a long way to say, okay, that engages the other 90%, because I think they say only between 1 to 10% of Americans ever put on a uniform. So when the other 90% engages, it makes those people feel valued, and they say, you know what, they appreciate what I'm doing, and then they're more likely to be able to use those services, as opposed to no one educating them or investing in them, where they feel I'm on an island, and that can put people into a very dark hole.
So I think he said the key word, education. So I'm gonna say education and making resources available. On the installation, the resources are gonna be there, but outside the installation, you don't know where to go typically. You know, it wasn't until I joined the YMCA and took the role I am now, where I'm connected with the Coalition and our Health Advisory Committee and all the Veterans Councils. I'm part of the resource. I can actually see all the resources out there. There's tons of resources out there that people don't know about it. And I think get the word out. We need to have more events, tabling opportunities. We do a back to school bash at the YMCA. We offer people to come in during the summertime. We get backpacks to the kids and the families full of supplies, but we have resource tables out there, and we want to be able to share these resources with everybody. Because a lot of times they're hidden unless you're looking for them. And if you do a Google search right now, you're going to be overwhelmed with how many opportunities or resources out there. Who do you go to? And you're going to try to find somebody local. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is educate the folks and make sure the resources are on hand immediately.
Well, I'm gonna go with something very similar, which is, as far as like the self-care, obviously mental health. So making sure you stay connected with yourself, right? What do you need? What is it that you need to be able to engage in the community? Enjoy the things that you typically do. Stay connected. And I think sometimes our service members tend to pull back when they're facing some of the health challenges. So they may isolate more than anything else, and it's recognizing that. But it's not only that, it's your peers recognizing it as well, and kind of being there with you. Family members, same thing, them recognizing the ways that they can keep everyone engaged in all of this, right? Staying engaged in all of this and doing the things that you love. Don't forget to go out and take care of yourself, because oftentimes that's the one thing our service members don't really put themselves first. Everyone else is put first, right? That's their job. But connecting with themselves more and knowing what it is that they need and kind of seeking it out.
I heard something today, I was talking about being in stressful situations, and it's prioritizing joy. Like always trying to find a way to prioritize joy, and with joy comes opportunity. But then again, like you were saying, resources and making sure that we have the opportunity to continuously engage. You know, the turnover ratio, how long they're going to be in Jacksonville, 3 years. You have to continuously bring that information to the table. It can't just be a one and done situation, right? It just has to be. Trident Ministry is a wonderful example of that. Bringing community partners in and consistently sharing information, from now until the end of time. But then also, talking about self-care and prioritizing joy and things that that make you happy, versus it's not always, a mental health treatment. Sometimes it's something as simple as getting out and spending time with your peer and doing something fun and engaging. And that can, that can change everything for you, your mood, everything. So, yeah. The next question is actually a perfect segue. What collaborations or partnerships exist between the mental health clinics, military organizations, and enhancement support services that you would like to sort of mention or call out? And why do you think that's so important? I'm going to go back to you, Deanna.
So pretty much everyone here, and, Wounded Warrior, Fleet and Families, and MWR, the, Elizabeth Dole Foundation, like, there are so many organizations out there that we've partnered with. We have a wonderful case manager on staff, and we do a lot of outreach to a lot of organizations to make sure that anything that, a service that needs to be connected with, that we are able to kind of, form those relationships. And so I think, this is a good example right here now.
I go to our Veterans Coalition that's hosted here. So you're looking at 100 to 125 people, outside entities that are typically civilian or owned organizations here to support the military in the area. It's a collaborative effort, and it's kind of humbling to see that many folks in that area in one room here to help out our veterans and active duty families and reserve families, our military community as a whole. I think it's the collaboration's there. It's just a matter of, like I said earlier, getting the word out and educating folks on it.
I wish, and I love those meetings. Those are amazing meetings and packed house in here every single time. And I wish we could bring something like that and provide some sort of engagement for our service members so they know what else is out in the community. That to me is the only like kind of disconnect, is that, yeah, there are all the services, and yes, the organizations are speaking to each other, but how do you then get that information transferred over? And that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah, what about you, Ian?
I'll give an example of kind of keeping the privacy. Dealt with a veteran who was suicidal, and so many community resources stepped up as he had lost his VA disability. He was at risk of becoming homeless, could not afford food, had a lot of medical issues, Vietnam veteran. And so many people forget about the Vietnam veterans, and they were unappreciated when they came back. Many still feel unappreciated to this day. But just seeing the outpouring of so many organizations to come together to say, hey, let's keep you in your house. Let's keep food on your table. Let's get you the help that you need. And it's something that we've seen on our end. We send out a quarterly survey to all of our watchstanders, which is what we call our volunteers. Every quarter, they get a survey that was developed by the CDC in partnership with Firewatch, so 2 organizations collaborating. But then we reach out to these volunteers, our watchstanders, and we say, where are you referring resources? And just seeing, hey, they're going to Cohen Clinic, they're sending them to VA mental health or VA health or any number of things that are available. Being able to see that there's so many resources, like Eric said, that people don't know about. So when we actually have our communities that are engaging, that is just life-changing and life-saving for so many people.
Yeah, I would mention all the ones that have been said already, but for me, inside the gate, Fleet and Family is a big one for us because of the accessibility of that. And then our branch medical, we have our mental health professionals on site most of the time. So that's one that we would typically go to first if we have situated, but I've referred out to all these that have been mentioned. And it's really, I think it was touched on with what Ian was getting at, is it's finding the right resource for the right person for the right situation and understanding what that is. And I think that also goes back to Eric's point, is going back to training and education, training our leaders, training our people that are in those positions to make those determinations. Now, for me, it's a little unique. I have confidentiality, so I can't literally get someone to go do and get help unless they agree to that, no matter what the situation is. So for us, if someone comes in suicidal, my thing is to stay with them. I'm not going to leave that person. Even though I can't force them to get help, I can stay with them. And so it's just recognizing what the situation is at the time. But definitely all the ones that have been mentioned are really good.
I'm going to mention one more thing. Like, as we're sitting here, myself and our team are getting ready to attend the Gary Sneeze Foundation. We provide their mental health support for their Snowball Express every year. And so that's just another part, like the fallen heroes, their families are still needed and have support and making sure to provide that support. But there is a large, just an organization like that, there is such a large resource room for all of those families in that event just by itself. And that's just one of the many things that they offer them. And so it's connecting with all of these organizations. Every single organization has multiple ways to connect with multiple things. And like you're saying, tailoring it to the right situation for the right need, and just getting that person or that family to that resource that they need.
Very unique. And it transitions from year to year, person to person. So it's hard. I mean, you have a moving target, forever a moving target. It's really hard to kind of hit the nail on the head. The next question, I'm going to start with you, Reggie, is for Deanna and Reggie. What are some of the common misconceptions about mental health treatment that you encounter within the military community? How do you address some of those common misconceptions?
Wow, that's a tough question because it's definitely there. It's something that I will get, like I say, because we have confidentiality, we will get people come in and talk about, I would go get the help, but now it's going to go on my record, and that may be my career, or that may be my reputation. And it goes back to the fear thing Eric was talking about. You would think, 2024, about to be 2025, we would have gotten past the stigma of needing mental health help, but we're not there. And even it affects our leadership. I'm not going to say names or anything, but even at Mayport, we had officers that were dealing with suicidal issues and things. And so it doesn't matter the rank. It's not just about finances, because it's about pressure, dealing with deadlines, dealing with, people are competing for spots. It's almost, it is a toxic situation sometimes, just doing your job, because there's only so many rates that people are going for. And I think you hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, of focusing on your family is the most important thing, because what's another title when you retire? It means nothing. It's your family dynamic. And that's the thing we try to reiterate when people come to the chapel or talk to us as chaplains, is try to bring perspective. But it's not always easy. But that stigma is unfortunately just there. And how we get past that, I think doing these types of things, communication is the key, in my opinion, building community, communicating. And then the number one thing, if we don't do the last thing, then the first two don't matter. And that's show we care. I think we have to show that we care for those things to work.
Safe space, definitely. Safe space and continued shared resources. What about for you, Deanna?
Well, myths are her biggest thing. You're gonna take my guns, or I'm gonna lose my security clearance, or I'm gonna lose my job, or so those are typically the things that we see the most. We did a training last year for FiWatch. Our director and I went around the state of Florida training for the Florida Leads Project, which is QPR training, suicide prevention. And we trained all of the VSOs, about 300 VSOs and VSEs in the state of Florida. Just basically to learn about suicide prevention, recognize what to say, and what questions to ask and how you follow up. And we had one person at a very initial, just pre anything, just the trial run. We had one VSO who was wonderful in even volunteering to just do a run through with us. And he was so resistant to it, right? Because he came in with all of those myths, all of the myths, and he went through the training twice. And he became the biggest champion, because he saw that when you just had the education behind what to say, and how to address it, it just crumbled. So even, and he's a veteran, right? But even with him, he was able to get that training to be able to say, oh, okay, you're not going to do this. You're not. And I can't tell you how many phone calls I got from him. Hey, Deanna, I'm asking the questions. You know what questions, right? And so he said, I got somebody to talk to you. And so we would get them in with us, we would do the rest of the work, and that was it. But he became our biggest champion, so through that very program. So, breaking down those myths for folks like that who have been living it, who have heard it from everyone else, and, you know, it's just realizing that isn't so. In all the years I've been here, we've never taken anyone out. Not that we have the power to do that. But, and thinking that when they come here, they're going to get Baker Acted. Again, in all the years I've been here, we've yet to Baker Act anyone that's been here or come in for service.
Eric or Ian, do you guys want to chime in on that last question before we transition to our final question? Thoughts? No?
Good. We're good.
All right. So this is the $1,000,000 question, right? I think I touched on this. It's a moving target, right? So there is no right answer, but what can we do to better support our military community? Let's start with you, Reggie, and I'm gonna go around.
I think I did there at the end is to show we care. I think the more we do these initiatives to give back to our active duty sailors or active duty military, I think it sends the message that there's purpose and meaning in what they're doing. And when they have purpose and meaning, it's gonna change a lot of things, in my opinion. So just showing that we care, continue to build community, continue to communicate. Those are the big 3 C's, I think.
My big word that always comes to mind is understanding. So anyone who's never dealt with the military community, understanding identity. When you come in, I came in 17 years old. I was Ian. I was a snot-nosed teenager. And they broke me down and made me a Coast Guardsman. And then after 22 years, I was a chief. But once I took off the uniform, chief, like Eric said, that title meant nothing. So, well, this is all I've known. My family suffered. I don't know, to Deanna's point, I was once asked, what makes you happy? I said, serving others. They said, that's not it. What makes you happy? Well, serving others, doing things, volunteering. No, what makes you happy? I didn't have an answer. I still struggle with that answer to this day because my mind is so fixated on giving to others. And understanding that there's so many military and veterans out there that some of them are going to be wearing the veteran shirt, the Marine Corps shirt, whatever. They're still, that was the last time they felt seen, accepted, a part of something. And now maybe they're struggling with that identity. And just realizing that people get broken down to move into the military lifestyle. And then sometimes leaving the military lifestyle breaks them down. So being able to say, hey, what do you need? How can I help? Here's these resources. Here's what I can do for you. And being very upstream and intentional with those interactions goes a long way. Because just sitting there going, Marine Corps, whatever. Like I can get that on eBay or at Walmart or whatever and walking by. That's not going to help that person. But the empathy, the interaction, being able to dispel those myths that people may have, whether it's about being Baker Acted, having their guns taken away, or even suicide. There's so many ways that we can approach people better to be able to show that empathy and that care. And Northeast Florida does a fantastic job with it compared to the rest of the country, but we can always be better.
I'm gonna say boldness. There's several times since I've been with the YMCA where I've been called about a member who was struggling or a staff member that was struggling, whether in the military or not. And I think the community's starting to understand it, but I think the mentality needs to shift. A lot of people say it's not my problem. I don't want to engage. I don't want to interfere with the folks. I don't want to talk to them because I don't want the problem to be my problem. And that's a sad thing to hear because so many people walk past you and you're dealing with problems. I think everybody in here in this room has a problem at one point in time and you haven't been addressed, hasn't been addressed. So I think one, we could be more bold and willing to see somebody who's sitting in the corner with their head down or struggling or crying on the phone or walking to the grocery store, putting things on the aisles where you can tell they have financial needs or issues to engage, say, how can I help you? It's really not about me keeping the money in my pocket or you having the money in the bank. It's about giving back to folks and being engaged, willingness to serve. You said service is what makes you happy. That's what makes me happy, but seeing the impact in the end is the big result and what really puts the exclamation point at the end of my day. So like I said, being bold, go to these folks, see somebody having a bad day, engage with them. And the community's getting better about it, society's getting better about it, but I think we should have that mentality a little bit where we just don't want to develop, bring anybody else's problem in our world. So open up a little bit.
So I'm gonna say going along with, with some of what you said, I'm gonna say, listen. Listen to what they need. Listen to what they're asking for and get it. You know, whatever it is that they need or they're asking for, find a way to get it. A lot of times they come in here and they don't feel heard, when they go to anyone, right? And so sometimes they're coming here and they feel like they're being heard for the first time. Or I'm hearing things like, no one's ever told me that before. And so, or no one's ever, so just 2 weeks ago, somebody was so touched by something we did here in the office that he was crying because no one ever cared enough to even go that far with him. And so I think listening to what they need and just trying to find a way to provide it and get them there.
Definitely takeaways from today is, empathy, community, joy, being humanizing the experience, and, peer-to-peer education and just sharing information. It goes a long way. If you don't know, you don't know, right? Well, thank you so much. You guys did a phenomenal job. Thank you so much for answering all of those wonderful questions and sharing that information. Now I'm going to open it up for anyone in the room that would like to ask any questions. And we can also open it up on online as well. So, yeah, sure.
For somebody who's, outside of, the citizen, when you have a friend who's struggling with PTSD and they start to have I guess, not an episode, but an issue, with anxiety, there's square breathing and things, coping mechanisms such as that. Is there anything that we can do to help them, assist them get through an issue like that, that wouldn't necessarily, trigger it even further or cause them to feel that we're applying a stigma to them?
Sure. I think the biggest thing you can do is ask them what they need. Let them lead the way of what it is that they need. So many times that, well-intentioned family members try to help, right? Well, of course, we don't want our friends or family members to struggle. And so sometimes we're doing things that we think will help, but what they're actually wanting is something different. And so I think first step would be to find out what is it that they need. What do they need in those moments? And if you've seen something that has happened previously, ask them, what helps you when that happens? What do you need me to do when that happens? And so take it from there, take their step from there.
Yeah, I have a question, similar to what Ian was saying. So I have friends that are retiring or have retired and really lose sight of what their next step could be or should be. And, what are maybe some resources that you guys would recommend for someone in that place? Or does the military on the exit where you hit that mark, do they provide you with any kind of, testing to see what a civilian position or what that transition may look like?
Well, I'm gonna give the first resource. Operation New Uniform is based out of Jacksonville. They are a fantastic organization. I call it boot camp from military back to civilian life. And it's a 2-week course where they come in, they get to learn all sorts of networking skills, kind of reprogram, like where I was saying, I left the Coast Guard as a chief. Well, who's Ian? So let's get you back to Ian. And they are a fantastic organization for people to sit there and here's 2 weeks where we get to learn all sorts of skills. We get to learn about our value. And then there's a magnificent network that Operation New Uniform has. So they can introduce them to employers, different organizations that are out there. One of the biggest success stories I heard, one of the gentlemen that just finished it actually got hired on by Operation New Uniform as their outreach coordinator. So stuff like that, there are possibilities where people can go through and say, you know what? I'm now aware of this because to that point, I'll only speak for myself. My transition, I spent 4 years in corporate America and despised every minute of it. And it took me going into nonprofit to find what actually made me find that value again. But there's other people that I know that they love corporate America. So it's just being able to network, be able to learn from people, ask questions, and have people be honest with them. This is what I've gone through. This is what I've seen. Here's someone you can talk to. And then just encouraging them to explore what's out there for them.
I would just add one thing with that, because that's great advice. We do offer like TAP class and things to get you ready for civilian life again. But one thing you could do as a friend or a family member of someone going through that is allow them space to grieve that loss of role. Because I was a hospital chaplain for a long time, and just as much as you miss the person that passed away, a lot of what people grieve is now they no longer have that role with that person. So it happens even with jobs. Like if say 20 years you've had this role and it's gone, you're not going to get over that overnight. So give them the ability to grieve that and also encourage them through that grief because they need to mourn that.
I will say too, for family members and friends of mine that have made that transition after, 22 years, 24 years, find a peer mentor. Find a peer mentor that's went through that and has been successful on the other end. I think that camaraderie is that's where they falter is there's a loss of camaraderie, right? They're no longer in the military. They're used to this space, these people that have been through the same experiences. Finding someone that has transitioned or retired out of the military that is successful, and they can help them through that transition, but find a peer that has made the transition and is, come out on the other side successful. That's so important.
I'm almost piggyback on what you said. It's that connection, the camaraderie. When I separated, I lost my mission, my identity. Like, what is my role now? So for 20 years, I was in IT or combat communications along those lines. And like, what do I do now in the civilian sector? Fortunately for me, I had a decent transition because I went from active duty to guard. Active duty folks won't get that transition. As soon as that day drops and you retire, you're no longer in that role unless you go through Skill Bridge, which is a phenomenal program that the military's offering now. Allows people to make that role into a new career as they separate, retire. But so resources from the YMCA standpoint, we have the Sierra Club. We're partnering with Sierra Club. We do outdoor adventures. So we have a bunch of veterans that come together and active duty families. We go on hikes together and the opportunity to network and bring people together. We have a program called Operation Strong and Ready for Veterans. It's an 8-week program. It's not just fitness, but it's mental health. We provide resources in that environment and provide them a mission to work back together as a team. You may have Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, coaches together, poking fun at each other at the same time, but we're all working towards the same mission to be better for each other. And we may put them in an environment, so let's design a mission for this 8-week cohort. Let's take you outdoors and we'll do a food distribution and we'll plant a garden. We'll mentor at the school somewhere. Having that mission is important for a military member. When I separated and didn't have my mission anymore, I was lost. So I went through several years of counseling and trying to find my way. And it wasn't until I found a team environment with the YMCA or in a brotherhood with the coalition that I've been part of where I could connect with like-minded people, if that makes sense.
Anyone online have any? Sorry, we have one in person and then we'll
I
transition.
was just gonna go back to the beginning where you said I had no idea about a food deprivation situation for military. Are there places and drop points and maybe there's a clothing opportunity, things that civilians can just bring to you guys or, a collaboration that can be made in our locations where we can do that? I was thinking about cooler temperatures, the kid need coats and mittens and things like that.
Yeah, so one of the things we were doing, and a lot of the people here were part of the Trident Ministry team at Mayport. And what that was partnering with people in the community, trying to facilitate those needs. Because to get things onto base, to give out and distribute,
Yeah.
there's so much legal red tape. It would take 2 years sometimes for the most smallest thing you can imagine. So what I tried to do was find people that are already doing that and connect the dots, and then we would message and market it to our people. So one thing we're starting at NAS Jax now that I'm over there is next month, I can send out a thing where it's called Compass Rose Ministry. So it's the same thing as Trident, but we moved it over to NAS with a new CO. And so he's a pilot, so he wants Compass Rose and not the Trident. So that's why the name change. That's something I can message out through Eric or whoever, through you to get that out. Because we do that we meet once a month and we try to find out what are the giants this month that we need to try to tackle.
Yeah, Trident Ministry is a wonderful resource, but beyond that, there are
Yeah.
regular food distributions where potentially donations could be made. So there is the food pharmacy, which is I always get it wrong, it's the second Tuesday.
Second, I think it's the second Tuesday and the fourth Thursday.
Fourth Thursday, and that's in Mayport. It's just right off base and that's a regular distribution. There's opportunity there, I think, for potentially doing donations. Beaches Emergency Assistance Ministry, they have Troops Tuesdays. They actually have 2 days a week. They do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think it's from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. and families can register to go and actually shop for services. That's another opportunity potentially to drop off donations. Kings Bay, the YMCA does a monthly distribution. It's usually second Saturday of every month. That's another wonderful opportunity. I think that it's just all about that awareness piece, sharing these things that are continuously going on, and then maybe even jumping in and providing additional services, whatever that may be. If it's clothes, if it's, I know that the Rotary, they do like gift cards, every other food pharmacy, I think, where it helps young families, here's a $25 gift card to buy off items or what have you. But there's a lot of opportunity for that, but it's the awareness piece once again. Yeah. Have any questions online?
No, if you have a question online, if you could write it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rachel, and let you close us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for sharing your knowledge and experiences, and to our audience members for your insightful questions this evening. I'm Rachel Sandler with the JCA. Together Against Hate was an idea from two CEOs, the JCA's Adam Chaskin and First Coast YMCA's Eric Mann, and it came to fruition thanks to our talented staff at the JCA and the First Coast YMCA, as well as some generous funding. This year, we give many thanks to the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund and CSX for their support of our Together Against Hate series of events. Together Against Hate continues next week, Tuesday, December 17th at 10:30 a.m. with a curious conversations about diverse abilities hosted by the ARC Jacksonville at Bartram Shell Branch Public Library on Davis Pond Boulevard in St. John's. Breakfast will be provided. On Thursday, January 23rd, we'll gather at the Museum of Science and History, MOSH, for our next speaker event to discuss United Against Hate, Identifying, Reporting, and Preventing Hate Crimes. It will be in conjunction with the Lives Illuminated, Dreams Illuminated exhibit. Please be sure to like and follow our Facebook page so you don't miss any updates from our series this year, Together Against Hate Jacksonville. Thank you all for being here tonight, and have a good night.